Hi everybody, Keeping It Real here. Today's date, March 22nd, 2012. A lot of news going on in the world today, and I would love to report it and start making videos about the news that's going on. But first of all, I'd like to do a little introduction video. I know it's my second video that you've seen on my Facebook and my blog at googleblogger.com. But this is my introduction video, so you understand who I am, what I do, and why I do it. I've been a conspiracy theorist, a geopolitical researcher, an independent researcher, and an eschatologist ever since March 30th, 1986. Kind of happened when I accepted Christ into my heart, and I said, hey, God, what can I do for you? And when I got done with that prayer, I opened up my Bible, and the first verse that popped out at me was Ezekiel's 33. And basically, it's a watchman. Keep an eye on the wall. Whenever you see the armies approaching, warn my people. But, you know, if I fail to do it, blood's on my hand. And if I do it, then, and you don't listen, the blood's on your hands. So I've spent, ever since 1986, doing a lot of research into the Bible, of course, a lot of mysteries of the Bible, the things that most people don't cover in church. Matter of fact, I don't know any churches that cover the topics that I talk about. But they are the mysteries of the Bible, and that's kind of where I got started. I wanted to understand why were they mysteries, and maybe I could find a solution for them, or an answer to what those mysteries were. And that's kind of how I started. And one of the first mysteries that I undertook was, the city that descends from heaven in the end times, the new city Jerusalem. It's supposed to descend looking like, with lights all the way around, stories to it, coming out of the heavens, a big city. So that was one of the first mysteries that I undertook, tried to understand what it was, and obviously the first step was a UFO. That's the only thing that could really be a city that descends out of the heavens with lights all the way around it, and bright colors like barium and cherubim and chrysalis, and I don't know, I'm probably mispronouncing those words, but anyways, that was many, many, many years ago. So after diving into the UFOs, obviously it led me to Area 51, and then from Area 51 I learned about secret government programs, and those secret government programs like Majestic 12, which you can Google. I'm not going to get into because it'll be a whole lot of time on this video. So, but Majestic 12 proved to me that there was secret organizations in our government that existed without the public knowing about it, and that kind of opened up a plethora of things over the years that I dove into, and from Majestic 12 I dove into secret CIA programs and Defense Department programs and things like that, and which then opened up a whole can of worms, because I found out things like MK Ultra, which is mind control experiments that were done on troops back then, and then how they could be transferred to people like you and I. The actual programs that existed back then, and they still go on today. I learned about the tachyometer, which was the first subliminal message machine. It was put into the old movie tone pictures back in the days when movies was all they had and there was no TV. They would flash a picture like real quick that you wouldn't really see it, but it would tell you were thirsty or you were hungry. And that was actually a huge experiment. It got a lot of attention. Some people saw them, not everybody. Some people saw those little flashes of message, caught onto it, and said, listen, you can't do this. They outlawed the machine, but not the brainwashing or subliminal messages. So they did away with the machine, and I tell you, just to cut it short, over the many years, they have greatly improved how subliminal messaging and brainwashing works. But that's a whole other thing. Like I said, MK Ultra, I went from MK Ultra to researching and getting Freedom of Information Act requests for secret plutonium experiments. Ooh, yeah, I know, secret plutonium experiments, but these ones were on people that lived in the mountains of California and Utah, who didn't know that these experiments were being done on them. Maybe they would go to water reservoirs, drop plutonium, uranium into the water, and see what the reactions on the people were. You know, how did they physically react? How did their bodies react to the radiation that was in the water? They did this to troops as well when they were testing for the H-bomb, you know, with the Manhattan Project and out in the desert. You know, they would put troops in front of radiation, without radiation suits, in front of these huge nuclear blasts and test the effects on them. I mean, lots of crazy things. I mean, so as I research over the years, I find out that the government really didn't care. At least I started to believe that the government really didn't care about people in general. It always had this agenda. And that's really where I started to believe that that's what I was supposed to do, was to expose what this agenda was and who's behind it, and expose them. And that's kind of what I've done since March 30th, 1986. Back in 1999, I had a huge website, conspiracywatch.com, packed full of videos, documents that I had gotten under the Freedom of Information request, and I put them all up there. And things like Mark is a Beast, Big Brother. I mean, those were huge topics of mine. I broke down what company actually created what will be the Mark of the Beast, which is a company called Chip, financially backed by IBM to make implantable chips that go into your wrist so you could buy, sell, or trade. But that is an actual company. You can Google it all day long. But anyways, I'm digressing, which I do a lot. But when I'm trying to explain something that I now know at 43 has been going on since the dawn of man by a group of people who worship pagan deities, I guess, ancient gods or goddesses, and they always have. And these are people of influence and power and money, and they have always been there since the dawn of man. Matter of fact, exactly from the time that Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, ate from the tree, because they ate from the tree, got kicked out of the garden, had Cain. Cain went out to the wilderness. And it was when Cain went out to the wilderness that we see man go from knuckle dragging, hanging out in the caves like Adam and Eve did, to a civilization. I mean, knuckle dragging, gardeners and hunters is what we were, and we went to a civilization with government, schools, education, writing system, you name it. I mean, jewelry, weaponry, warfare. It was all done right there at that point in time, and this was, we're talking mankind maybe a couple hundred years old, if that. So that civilization existed back then, and how did it come about is one of the biggest revelations that I've had, is that it came about because if you check U.S. history, archaeology, world history, and religious history, you can track it all the way back to a group of the earliest civilization known as the Sumerians, who their historical records say that someone from above came down. They call them gods, and they shared knowledge with them. This knowledge allowed them to make jewelry, to make metal weapons, have warfare, create a form of government, currency, a money system. I mean, all the things that an advanced civilization has today. And it was because these gods came down and shared with mankind, Cain's descendants, in the desert, where he built the first city that's ever been made. It was called Erech. How he went from a small city to a massive civilization of global dominance. At then, it was global. I mean, sure, there wasn't that many people on the planet, but it was a global government. And the rise of the Anunnaki, who taught Cain, and they became a big city, a metropolis, a civilization. Well, they became corrupt, and they became evil because of all this technology. I mean, all this technology that the angels, the fallen angels, is who the Anunnaki are, that shared with them. And biblically, God destroys them because they have gotten so evil. Not really the people, but it was the sons of God who mated with women, and these women had children, and these children were men of renown and giants, and who were the original king gods Samaria, with their new first government, first civilization, had king gods. It was the first time in recorded history that Adam, Eve, and their descendants started to worship other gods other than the God that we all know, as far as the Christians, the Muslims, and the Jews. We all worship the same God, but back then, that's when they started to worship these gods who came from heaven. And if you go through all around the world, if you go to China, if you go to the Mayans, the Aztecs, you go to any civilization that's ever existed, the Romans, the Japanese, you name it, everybody had these ascended masters or descended masters, people who came from the skies, came down, taught mankind. And in every single civilization, because of what they were taught, they grew very big, very powerful, these civilizations, and they pretty much self-destructed. Rome did it, the Mayans did it, the Aztecs did it, the Sumerians did it, the Phoenicians, the Babylonians, all of them did this, built themselves up to advanced civilizations, and then poof, disappeared and self-destructed. Now, that was the goal originally of these fallen angels, the Anunnaki, the sons of God that came down mating with women. That was their goal, was because when they deceived or when they rebelled against God, they came to earth and they wanted to corrupt mankind because they had lost their place in heaven. They were so mad, so jealous at the descendants of Adam, which we all are, except for a very small few. And that was their goal. So the civilization appears to be the downfall of mankind, and it always has been. There's always been these fallen angels who were worshipped as gods in the very beginning. God sends the flood because the world got so evil, and these descendants of the Nephilim, of the fallen angels, which are the Nephilim, they continued on after flood. Now this is where the bloodlines really start. This is the bloodlines of people who were angels, gods that fell from heaven and taught mankind. These Nephilim, which if you go from Noah to Cush, Cush had a son named Nimrod, and Nimrod built the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel, they had many gods in Babylon where they worshipped the fallen angels. These fallen, and God sees how man is God, because remember the Tower of Babel, and Nimrod wanted to be in heaven, and this is man's pride, mankind's pride. This is our accomplishments. We can go away to heaven without God's permission, basically. So God says, "Whoa!" Destroys the Tower of Babel, right? The tower, not the people. The Babylonian civilization continues on, but it was at that particular point that God decided to confuse the languages and scatter mankind throughout the world, and that's where we get the Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Mayans, the Aztec, the ancient Chinese. They all start up. I think it's somewhere around 3500 BC. Most of all of them start up about that period in time, depending on which calendar you're using. And if you believe that the world's been around for tens of billions of years, you should probably turn this video off and go do what you're doing, because the world hasn't. But we're talking 6,000 years from the dawn of creation to now. So at 3,500 years, this is where all these advanced civilizations that were now controlled by these man-god kings or demigods, or they were half god and half man, and these were the children of the fallen angels, people from the very beginning, the angels from the very beginning. These were the children who survived through the flood, built the civilization. Once again, gets to start off with the Babylonian Empire, goes to the Assyrians, and it just keeps going and going. You got the Greeks, the Romans, the Phoenicians, and it goes on and on and on. Today, all the way up until today, because if you look at especially the architecture, the statuary that they had back in those days, they exist today in the world we have around us. You simply just open your eyes and take a look. You can go to the U.S. Capitol, you can go to your state capital, you can go all the way around the world, look at the capital of the world, and the buildings of government, and the schools, the libraries, and they all have these statues to these deities that were, various names. Could be throughout time. In different cultures, they all had different names. I can go all the way back to Samaria, the very beginning, and there was a goddess there called Inanne, and there was a god called on. You go to the Babylonian Empire with Nimrod and his wife, and then you had Marduk and Inanne. And different cultures, those two gods had different names, Baal and Ishtar, and the Greeks had Athena and Zeus, and it just goes on and on. But these were all the same deities that have been worshipped, for the last 6,000 plus years by very influential and powerful people. From the dawn of man, these people have been worshipped by these influential, powerful people who worship them. You, me, and everybody else kind of like me. We live our lives, we do what we do, but our main goal and our purpose is to supply these rich and powerful people who worship these Nephilim, these pagan deities, with their lives. That's what our purpose is. But their goal for us is to basically corrupt us so we don't get to heaven, to see us so we don't get to heaven, and to kill us every chance they get. And if you look through the world's history, you can actually identify that as it's happened. If you look at our world today, we've as a society today, we can kill hundreds of thousands of people in a blink of an eye. We have, just the United States alone, we have I don't know how many conflicts and wars going on right now. And I'm not just talking Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya. I'm talking the little battles. And that's just us. And we got, these are bloodthirsty, money-hungry, greedy control freaks that now control our world, and they have always controlled our world. I like to call them the Illuminati because the Illuminati means the enlightened ones, people who know something that you and I don't, at least not me, because I've spent many years researching them. But these Illuminati, or these worshippers of the fallen angels, are in control today, and you can still see it on our U.S. Capitol. You have the goddess Minerva. It's the same chick, man. Semiramis, Inanne, Ishtar, they're all the same chick and the same deity. The devil is still the devil. He just has many different names like Baphomet, Sanjaza. They go on and on and on and on. But they are still worshipped, and that's the most important thing. So my research, I guess, after 20 some odd years, has uncovered, and I believe I can honestly sit here and track it from the very beginning with Cain and his sudden growth to a civilization, the downfall of that civilization, and the rise and fall of every civilization until today. And it all can be affiliated to these fallen angels and people who worship them. I guess that's pretty much the summary. That's what I do. I'm a conspiracy theorist, a geopolitical researcher, an independent investigator, and an eschatologist. Those are the four things of what I am. So if you don't really understand anything that I say, I just ask you to keep listening, keep tuning in, keep reading the things that I post, because, like I said, I've been doing this 20 some odd years, and I'm still putting pieces and parts together. The more answers I find, the more questions I get. So it's my intentions, and it has always been my intentions, to try to make it clearer for you to understand, someone who doesn't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. So just keep tuning in. I really don't know how to express it anymore. I do got a big write-up coming up here. I'll be posting it on my Facebook, a couple of blogs that I got, and you'll be able to read, at least look at the pictures, read how I make the connections. Kind of like what I did here in this video, but you'll be able to look at the pictures where you can actually see the temples today, the temples 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, all the way up until 6,000 BC, which the temples are exactly the same, to the same deities, the same everything. And it's also my intention to show you today that these powerful people of influence still worship these deities. There's a video out there called Bohemian Grove, a guy that I've known for a long time. I don't talk to so much now, but back in '99, he gave me a video. It's kind of widespread out there on the internet now. It's called Bohemian Grove, and it's about where the powerful elite go to meet twice a year. In July, they'll all meet there and perform this burning of Delcare ceremony and lots of other ceremonies out in the woods. But one of the best advice I could give somebody is go out and Google it. Google Bohemian Grove. Watch the video. There's some short clips that show strictly the burning of Delcare ritual that occurs at the base of a giant wooden owl. with burning body and screaming and chanting and almost red robes. It's crazy stuff. Fireworks and displays. Big. They call it a play, but it's a ritual. It's a Babylonian ritual to the ancient god Marduk and the goddess Inanna, who is symbolized by the owl. I mean, I could go on and on. All you got to do is double check anything I said. I know it sounds kind of like rambling, but if you're truly listening, you'll and you're curious, you'll do your research on your own. So I guess that's really all I'm going to say. I know it sounds crazy, but when you try to shove 6,000 years of research into a 20-minute video, it gets real hard. So just keep paying attention, do your own research. Like I said, I've always told people, don't believe a word that I say. Take what I say, investigate it on yourself, form your own conclusions, make your own opinions, and then tell people what you learned. And you'll find out that I'm pretty close to being dead on. So anyways, I'm keeping it real. I'll always keep it real. And I'm saying peace out.